Welcome back to Extraordinary Women on thatchannel.com. I'm your host, Shannon Skinner. And in the second half of the show, I'm joined by Carla Wood, who is the Managing Director of EDI Implementation Engineers, strategist, and a speaker. So I'm really excited to have her on the show. And later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top tip on creating a successful life. And you're going to hear Carla's. Carla, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate it on this rainy Tuesday morning.
I know. It's not snow. So.
Did you drive or did you...
I did drive. It was a quick drive.
Yeah, of course we live in the same neighborhood. You live in the beach too.
That's right.
Now, you have been a successful strategist for a few years. It hasn't... Now, being a strategist is sort of a trendy thing now in business.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, you know, I think all great things become trendy at some point, and strategy is something that has always been, and it always needs to be. And I think right now, in an age where business is not as simple as it once was, the economy is not as straightforward as it once was, people need to be more intentional. And so they can no longer get away with hiring consultants for a few days to feel good and then not applying what they've taught them. So now what companies are starting to do is say, wait a minute, we actually need to be strategic about what we do in our business, and that strategy has to encompass more than a 2-day retreat. It actually has to become a part of what we do so that we can drive our results, because the economy isn't driving it forward for us.
As we were talking earlier, you said that many companies now are actually creating a special position, VP of strategy, of business strategy, or something similar to that. So,
yeah, which is great, and I'm not entirely sure what those job descriptions entail, but the cynic in me chuckles a little bit, because I think, shouldn't everyone be the VP of strategy in an organization? We all need to be strategic in how we think about our own positions, whether you're the front desk reception or you're the CEO. There should be strategy in what you're doing that is always focused on the objectives of the organization.
Now, before you joined EDI Implementation Engineers as the managing director, you actually at one point had a very successful career as a realtor, and I want to know what drew you to real estate to begin with. I mean, you sold a lot of real estate.
I did, yes, and I love the real estate industry. I'm quite passionate about it. In fact, I have a master's of science in real estate, and I was drawn to the real estate sales side of things mainly because my mom actually was already a highly successful realtor in her market, and I was looking for an opportunity to be strategic, relationally driven in my business. I am passionate about negotiation and research. I love both, and I saw an opportunity to really help her leverage her business that she'd already taken to a level of excellence and move it forward and create more space in life, because I think part of strategy is also making sure you have a life in your business and creating some semblance of balance. So that's what drew me in, and the real estate world has sort of become a passion for me as a result.
You sold about $100 million in real estate.
I did, yes, yeah. I worked in the business about 5 years. Took actually 1 year hiatus to do my MSRE, but in that time sold over $100 million in real estate.
MSRE?
Masters of Science in Real Estate. Yes, you have a very uncool person sitting here. I have an MBA in Marketing and Management and a Master's in Real Estate.
That's a very unusual designation.
It is. Well, in Canada, it's incredibly unique in that we do not have any programs at this point in time that offer that, which hopefully we will do at some point. So I was down in the US for that.
Now, what was it? You teamed up with your mom.
Yes.
What was it like to be in business with your mom, with family?
With family, it's a very unique piece. I mean, of course, it's wonderful some days and it's less wonderful others. And I currently coach quite a few families because family business creates a whole new level of dynamic. You can't leave work at the end of the day and go home to your family and separate the two. They're interwoven and intertwined. And so part of being in a family business really requires staring that down and understanding the unique aspects of your relationship and being strategic about how you apply both, embrace both, and then also still continue to be a family.
What were the challenges?
Well, probably for my mom and I, the biggest challenge is there's no one as similar to me in the world as she. So when you've got two people who are so much alike, that can often be a challenge. I also think in family business, there's not that boundary of selective communication. In our families, we tend to say what we think, and that can be great in that it alleviates a lot of pressure in terms of wondering where things are going. But the challenge in a family business is that in moments of tension or conflict, then we aren't always as selective and appropriate as we might be if we were dealing with someone who's 100% in our business world. So really working through all those dynamics, I think, is a unanimous challenge for family business.
So if anybody's in business and they want to business with their family and they need some coaching, you might be the person to come to.
I am your girl, absolutely, yeah.
Now, EDI Implementation Engineers, it's a coaching and consulting business.
That's right.
Can you just sort of elaborate on what you do?
Of course, I'm managing director at EDI, and what we do better than anyone in the world is implementation. So we focus on implementation, one, through keynote speaking, but two, primarily through coaching and consulting. And what our ongoing objective is return on investment for our clients. So we actually only take on coaching clients with whom we see an opportunity to increase their return on income from a coaching standpoint, and we do an evaluation process with them before we take them on as clients, and then we work diligently to drive that ROI in their time, in their dollars, in their margins, and so on.
So what kind of clients do you work with?
We work with any type of professional who's actually already successful or looking to become more successful. It's probably the simplest way. Some examples of clients of ours are real estate brokerages, real estate sales representatives, mortgage professionals, corporate executives, banks, financial institutions, financial advisors, entrepreneurs.
Now, implementation, I think that was it's an interesting word to have chosen. Now, what does it mean that you help companies grow through implementation? Can you give me an example of what that actually looks like?
Absolutely. Well, I was referencing earlier that what makes strategy so trendy now is that there was a time, and that time sadly is not over, where people take time to create a strategy. They have a vision for where their business is going to go, and they set objectives in place, and then they go back to work. So they have not managed to integrate that strategy into the day-to-day life of their business so that everything they do on Tuesday applies to their goal 5 years from now. And so implementation is really about drilling down from a top-down perspective to what details need to be taken care of on a regular basis to drive the larger picture objective. And then on the day-to-day, doing those small, specific tasks with the end result in mind. So if from a real estate standpoint, if I were looking to build my client base, perhaps I would be more intentional about making calls to people who best fit the individuals I'm looking to target, as opposed to just picking up the phone and cold calling from a telephone book. That would be a very simplistic example.
So it's not enough just to come up with ideas. You really have to put them into action.
You really do, and you need to understand the return on whatever it is you're doing. So I know my value. I know how I can optimize each hour in my day, each minute in my day. And so that becomes my standard framework for evaluating whether or not I take on a task or a responsibility, whether I delegate it, or whether I choose to not engage in that opportunity. And so I look and say, does that drive my end objective? Is this the best use of my time, my money? Is it driving the return that I need, or is there a better way for me to do that? And so we help our clients understand that concept and then actually drive that in their business.
Okay, now we are about to take a break, and before we do, I've got the good to know minute when I ask my guests for the top tip on creating a successful life. And Carla, I know you have a really good one.
Thank you. My tip is know where you want to go in life. Be ambitious and set your goal, and then be prepared for the detours, because the detours inevitably come, and they can be a lot of fun. So really embrace that and keep your eye on the final objective.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break, and we'll come back more with Carla Wood. Welcome back to Extraordinary Women. I'm Shannon Skinner, and I'm here speaking with Carla Wood. Now, something we had talked about during the break was an interesting fact that single women are one of the fastest growing consumer markets in Canada at present. I thought that was very interesting. Why is it?
It is very interesting. It's been the case for probably about 7 to 10 years, approaching a decade. And the reason for that, I think, is that one, women are learning that they can have financial security even before they settle down, if they settle down. So even today, most women are actually delaying having children till a later stage of life. And so as they're doing that, they're looking for financial security and independence, and home ownership is a way to do that. And fortunately, low interest rates and great opportunities in the housing market have enabled some of that. So,
well, I thought that was a really interesting little fact. Now, is the dream of having it all an unrealistic goal for women? I know that people are often go to coaches, or female friends of mine will go to coaches because they are striving to have it all. Is it unrealistic?
I think the answer is absolutely not. I think it's very realistic to have it all. The caveat to that is you need to define what it all is, because that's unique to each woman and each individual. And I think for women, some of the research that's come out through Harvard Business Review is that one of the biggest challenges for women making it to the top in terms of power positions is that the time in careers traditionally when that tends to happen is usually in your 40s, when you tend to take it from maybe senior level management to top of your class in the company. And that is often the time when women are actually more focused on their families than they are on their careers, and maybe aren't willing to work the long hours or put in the type of work focus that men have historically been able to do at that stage of life. So I think knowing the detours of life that are going to be thrown at you, and saying to your spouse, if you have a spouse with children, this is the sort of support that I need for you to achieve our goals. Or saying to your children, here's how things are going to be a little bit different at home for the next few years while mom works towards this position. But if you want to be CEO, if you want to be executive VP of your organization, knowing what it's going to take to get there and knowing how to drive your entrepreneurial business, I think is very, very feasible. It's just understanding how to figure out the balance and then implementing that and finding the support, whether it's through a coach or a team or mentor that can facilitate that.
Now, we were talking about, you had some advice that you could give women that are in business, and one of the tips was be proud of being a woman and embrace it.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful for being a woman, and I love men. I think that as women we have many, many unique gifts, and I think that historically we've been told that we need to be more like men to be successful, and I think that that's just untrue. I think we should embrace the differences and just really be ourselves, and a part of who we are, certainly a part of who I am, is a woman, and owning that and knowing that and being confident in that makes a huge difference in terms of the level of success that you derive.
Do you work with a lot of female clients in the corporate world?
I do. I would probably say about 50% of my client roster is female.
And how do they? What's sort of the today's sort of dynamic or complaint that you're hearing about dynamic in corporations with women and men executives and moving up through the ladder?
Mm-hmm. I still hear a lot from women that being attractive is a burden, and at whatever age in our society, looking good is valued and important, and we should look good. And yet it also can become an area of real challenge for women to be able to move forward. And so learning how to balance attractiveness and appropriateness, and setting firm boundaries within your context, and needing to almost prove yourself a little bit more so that people are clear that you're successful because of your abilities and not because of your appearance or your femininity.
Another piece of advice that you had for me was to understand your strengths and work to them.
Yes. One book that I'm actually passionate about is Strengths Finder 2.0 by Tom Rath. And what that book allows you to do is discover your strengths. Many of my poor coaching clients get to journey on that with me, as does my family and most of my friends. I force it on everybody. But what that book is about, and what I really am about, is understanding what your gift sets are. And for women, knowing your strengths means you now have an easy list of areas in which you can work towards. Before I moved into real estate and before I went to complete my second master's, I really stared down strategically what it was that I am good at, where my strengths lie, and how I wanted to use those in my goals and in my life. And I was able to then take those, understanding who I was, and move forward on them and really focus on those strengths. And it's been an exciting journey.
Because would it be true that if you were spending a lot of time doing activities that might actually be a weakness, perhaps would drain you, and that's really maybe not getting you anywhere?
Absolutely. Having the energy to move forward is critical to your day, especially as women who are balancing so many things. It's amazing how much more energy we have, one, when we're busy, but two, when we're busy doing things that we love. And certainly we can't ignore our weaknesses. It's always important to keep shoring up and becoming better. But if we can spend the majority of our day in areas of strength and delegate the rest, it will be a catapult in terms of opportunity for you.
So would you say that delegation is a key?
Delegation is a powerful tool, absolutely. As long as you can delegate well and you have people to delegate to. So it's effective delegation.
Effective delegation. Be free to share what you value about you. This was something else you had mentioned.
Yes, as women, I think that, again, one of the areas that we as a mass, and it's certainly not all-encompassing, can really struggle with is telling people what we're good at. Feeling confident and free to say, this is my strength. You know, I am a good coach, and I am proud of that fact, and it's a humbling reality. It does not go to my head. What it tells me is I'm working to my strengths, and more than I'm a good coach, I can tell you the reasons why I'm a good coach, which is really the more important piece. I mean, no one values a compliment more than a specific compliment, and I would encourage women to compliment themselves specifically, and to do that around others, so that as you're climbing the corporate ladder or you're building your business, people understand what makes you great. And when they don't know you, it's an opportunity for you to tell them, and then they can experience that, and you can all benefit together.
Because there is a tendency for us, when we start talking about ourselves a lot, we want to rein that back and say,
Absolutely.
You know, I'm going to appear like I'm boasting, or I'm going to appear self-centered.
That's right.
But really, there is truly a lot of benefit in sharing, about sharing yourself with others. Really.
It's so important. In fact, I'm smiling inside thinking about people who knew me years ago, laughing that I would ever give this advice, because I was the worst at receiving a compliment, let alone giving myself one. And I have learned to value me. And I really would encourage all women to learn to do that.
What do you think it is that makes you a good coach?
I think that I am a great listener. I have a high emotional intelligence, and that allows me to hear what sometimes people aren't saying. I'm good at asking questions, and I think asking questions is a real skill when you can hear the answer. And then because of my business skill set, my academic skill set from the University of San Diego, and from life in general, and then for my ability to apply and hold accountable in a gentle but firm way, altogether, I think that I make an excellent coach.
There's a lot of talk about leadership out there in the world of self-development, and a lot of books on leadership and how to be a leader in a vast range of fields. What does it take, do you think, to be a leader? In whatever industry it is that you're in.
Well, I think the first thing that it takes to be a leader is to be a leader by default. So I think some of us are made to be leaders. I would pause and say, it's okay not to be a leader. That tends to be where we drive ourselves to be always, is we should all be leaders, and that can set us up for a sense of failure if that's not who we are. So I'd say if you're not a leader, that's okay. There's many other things you can be. But if you are naturally a leader, then I think choosing who you're leading and choosing what you're leading people towards is really a key. So again, being strategic and decisive.
So is it perhaps safe to say that not everyone is meant to be a leader?
Hands down, if everyone were leading, no one would be following, and that really defeats the purpose.
Now, what do you think is the greatest challenge for people in business these days, and what you're experiencing with, your clientele?
I think one of the biggest challenges is living out the business success despite the economy or the media's perspective on the economy. I find that we are all deeply, deeply influenced by what we hear around us, and learning that your business doesn't have to follow the economic path is significant. And I find that those who are actually saying, that's actually not me, and I'm going to use this time to build my business, are the ones who are really going to thrive. Historically, in challenging economic times, those have been the greatest business opportunities. And I want to remind people that we're in that opportunity now.
Do you think it forces many people to sort of go back to their basic values, or to re-examine their values and what's important to them? When you see your savings completely, or, either completely deplete, or, at least have been significantly less than it was a year or two ago.
It certainly does. So I sometimes will see people who are feeling like they're drowning, and the danger, of course, the reason you throw out a ring to save a drowning person is because if you jump in with them, what happens? They drown you too. So if you're feeling like you're drowning in this economy, the goal is to really look for someone to throw out a ring to you. That's what coaching does. That's what we do at EDI. We throw out a ring. We don't jump in with you. And so don't let the bad news burden your business. Instead, stop and say, okay, what do I value? And use that as your buoy, and let that reel you back in, and then look for support so that you can catch your breath and get warm once you're back on that boat.
Well, Carla, our time is almost up, and I've really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you. This has been a real pleasure. I've enjoyed our time.
Now, for anyone who wants to find out more information about you and EDI Implementation Engineers, where on the web can they find you?
They can find us at www.edicoaching.com, or they can reach us toll-free at 866-922-4334.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.